Hi, welcome to the Lighthouse of Awesome. I am Michael. Today I am talking about the 12th book of the Confessions by Augustine. Augustine talks about the creation in this book, and also talks about how he is how to engage literature and how to read. A lot of the book is about how he used to misunderstand reading, and now he understands reading, and he's imparting that knowledge to his reader the best he can. And a lot of the themes is he wants to write in a way that everyone can understand on his or her own level, much like the Bible is written. Augustine has this understanding that there's many interpretations of the way something is written or something that is put down, and everyone might not agree on those interpretations, but according to the best of his ability, and as long as the reader isn't making the author say something profane that the author clearly did not mean, there's an acceptability to any interpretation. He goes on to talk about how folks can argue back and forth about different interpretations, and the point of those arguments should be to get to the best interpretation available, and even though there may be better interpretations that come about in the future. The point is not to win the argument, it is to gain a greater understanding. And he really focuses on that understand to the best of your ability type of way of modeling. And so when he talks about creation, he has a very specific understanding of Genesis, that it was written by God, imparted to Moses, and put down by Moses. The whole Pentateuch, the whole first 5 books. Based on the Great Courses Plus book, which says this is the end part of the Confessions, last 3 books. They said that according to the Timaeus, there was a model in the mind of the maker. And so they argued, and I tend to agree, that Augustine's understanding was that God created the heavens and the earth first in his mind, and then imparted them to the waters. So basically winning over Tiamat and creating the heavens and the earth as we know them today, creating order out of chaos. Now, it's not a great understanding to think of what that means. Like, so in our current time, that would be perhaps the solar system coalescing out of the great dust cloud or something like that. But what Augustine is looking for is more of a mental mind map that is helping his readers to understand God and understand God's purpose. It's not so much looking for a historical or a scientific explanation, but a spiritual explanation of why are we here, what brought this about, and how are we kind of moving forward. Back in the 4th century, Augustine had he could have hoped, but had no knowledge that his works would be still being read 1,600 years later. So there's a lot of distance, time, to really overcome between what we think about now as creation and historical implication and what was thought about then. Now, there's still people that believe in the absolute infallibility of the Bible and the Pope, and that it never contradicts itself or says anything weird. And for those of us that have read the Bible, we know that's just not the case. There's all sorts of different nuances that tend to conflict with each other in the Bible. And Augustine's argument for that is that that's okay. It's not for us to take literally so much as to take the spirit out of the book. you know. So going back to creation, a lot of Augustine's reaction to creation is that the Manicheans got it wrong. And so this is why he has moved on to what would become Catholicism and started to really create that understanding, and also why he's so concerned with creation and how we understand creation and what God imparted from it. So because the Manicheans got time wrong, they got creation wrong. And if you get creation wrong, you don't understand what you're working from. So, and this goes from his miseducation as a Manichean to his re-education as a Catholic bishop. Now we can only see creation from the inside, and what we need to do is find that outside reflection that builds upon it. And once we have a working interpretation of the Bible, so it doesn't have to be flawless, it doesn't have to be totally understood, it doesn't mean that anybody else understands our interpretation, but once we have something that we can start with that is not creating profanity out of the author's intentions, in Augustine's case, Moses. And that's a great working place to work from. Now, even though we know that Genesis was probably gone over 3 or 4 times, 3, 4, 5 times, pretty much culminating in the Babylonian exile of the Jews, where there was a group of scholars that got together and really put together these scrolls into a really cohesive writing structure that really didn't start the Hebrew religion as we know it, but really coalesced it and started the what would become the rabbi teaching. So as long as we have that kind of basic understanding, so we understand that there was a creation, God created the heavens and the earth for us to work with and manifest from. We have a working model that can create for us, basically, what we want to work from. Now, there are creedal assertions in Scripture, but for the most part, Augustine says the Bible is open for debate. There are better interpretations, there are worse interpretations, but enter where you get in. And he says the humble gate of Scripture is one of its great wonders. So many people can grasp at the same or different levels, and you can hold discussion and thought about these scriptures. And he concludes in the sense of this is I am certain and not afraid, meaning that as we develop greater understanding, we will see greater into these writings. And I'm thinking about this in the context of all the other things that I'm writing, and I'm also listening to the Paradigm Shift from Bob Proctor this weekend. He has a conference every few months where he basically puts some leads in to buy his other products. But he also includes a lot of valuable information about how to think and how to interpret things. And so there's a great pressure in Mr. Proctor's particular brand of thinking to reach a singular interpretation that leads to riches and wealth. Basically, the thought process is money is a great measure, and you can always measure how you're doing with how much money you have, which I'm not sure about, I'm not convinced about. But, it's a great philosophy to look into. But he goes over a lot of books and a lot of other ways of looking at things, especially like Troward, or The Science of Getting Rich, or that sort of mental thinking type book. And I think it's always better to really interpret the text as where you are, and that will help you grow more than interpreting the text where you're going, because we need to know where we are in order to get to where we're going. So those are two very key things in personal growth. Where am I? Where am I going? And that's really what I want to wrap up with today.